So my name is Catherine Theobald and I'm the HDR Partnership Officer in GRED. With me today online is Georgia Riddler, who you can see there.
Hello.
Georgia's our HDR Career Educator. Now we will have questions at the end of today, but Georgia will also be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions throughout, just pop them in there. So we've established everyone can hear me. Just some general housekeeping today. If you can please make sure that your microphones are on mute for most of the session. And as I said, if you have used the chat tool to ask any questions. Now, most people have their video off today, and we kind of prefer that because it just helps with the bandwidth for those, wherever we are, to help everyone has a good experience online. So, as we're getting started, I would like to acknowledge the Turrbal and the Yagara as the First Nation owners of the lands where QUT stands and pay respect to their elders, laws, customs and creation spirits. QUT and both myself would like to recognise that these lands have always been places of teaching, research and learning, and we acknowledge the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT community. So, like I said, I'm a HDR Partnership Officer and I'm from GRED. So GRED stands for Graduate Research, Education and Development, and we look after all these kind of additional training to help you with your HDR degree. So we can both help you complete your thesis as well as help you provide training and opportunities to help equip you for life after your degree. So if hopefully you already are aware of this and you're getting the fortnightly emails, but we send a HDR e-alert, sorry, it's called an e-update now, email to all HDR students. It's sent once a fortnight, you'll be getting it on Friday. And in that, we do all the hard work for you. We collate all the training that's available to you as a HDR over that fortnight, and we put it in these emails. So your next one will come on Friday. In addition to training, we also put important notices in there, as well as internship ads. So if you're looking for internships, that's really a good place to start. Yeah. Before we begin today, I just want to note that industry engagement is really important, whether you're looking at an academic career or you're looking for a career in industry. So increasingly, academic metrics include a component around external engagement, and certainly post-COVID we expect that that's only going to get more important. So what we're talking about today is really relevant, sort of whichever career path you're thinking of going into. And actually the research sort of shows that HDR graduates go in and out of academia, and a successful career path is being able to navigate these, and industry engagement certainly helps. The second thing is that industry, when I use it, it's kind of a catch-all phrase to refer to anyone who basically is in a university. So that can be businesses, governments, government business enterprises, non-profits, community organisations. If it's not a university, then we can basically assume it kind of falls under that term, that banner of industry for my purposes today. You can also think of it as research end users. So now today we will be talking about internships, and specifically funded internships, which are the longer term engagements. However, there are a range of industry engagement opportunities available to you during your HDR degree. And it's important to note that none of this is like a one size fits all approach. It can encompass a range of different experiences, and it's all suited to your personal development needs. So when I'm talking about internships today, be aware that there are other opportunities available, and we're actually working on a new plan for a lot of these at the moment, with some details coming out over the next few weeks and months. So specifically today with internships, we'll be looking at what a HDR internship is, what the benefits are and how it can complement your HDR experience. We'll also be looking at what the internship options are and how you can secure an opportunity. And importantly, we'll be looking at all the support and training and opportunities available to help you achieve this internship success. Now, today is also an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you may have. This whole session was designed because we knew that students had a lot of questions about internships, and there's also a lot of information here. So today will be a bit of an overview. There's also a chance to ask any questions. As we get started though, what I'm really keen to know is, why are you here today? So if you want to take a minute, I'm really keen to know what brought you here today, how you thought about it. If you want to stick it in the chat and let us know. There's not a lot coming through. I'm assuming everyone just wants to know about internships. Does anyone have any specific questions? Okay, we've had one coming through saying that they're looking to organise an internship with your existing internship industry contacts. We'll certainly be talking about that. New career directions after my PhD. We'll be looking today at how sort of the options available and what an internship encompasses. Okay, keen to know whether international internships are possible, especially when COVID is over. Interested in alternative career paths. Because I don't know what a HDR internship is. Well, hopefully that one I can definitely answer. You'll hopefully know what an internship is after this session. Someone's looking for an internship after submission. I feel old for internships. Well, Carla, I would challenge that notion. So when I think, so at QT, I'm just on the term internships. QT, when we talk internship, I know that's a very loaded term, but that is what kind of grad schools in the sector have termed these experiences. But really you can think about it more as like work integrated learning, or you can also think of it as more of like short-term commercial research projects, which is sometimes a bit more appealing. Available internships at internationals, we're not eligible for APR internships, yes. So we will be talking about APR internships today, but we'll also be talking about the range of experiences that are available to students. Okay, well, thank you everyone for putting that in. That's really helpful for me as we sort of talk about things today. And then if you have any specific questions following those up, we'll talk about them at the end. So, okay. Now, like I said, today was designed to help answer some of those questions, and there will be a lot of detail today, but it is certainly not all the detail, and particularly the slides. The slides do not have everything you need to know on them. What we do have though is our new internship guides. This is available on Blackboard, and it should be available on IQ, or it will be going up shortly. You can access that, and that's where I have like the in-depth information about a lot of what we're talking about today. So have a read through of that if you're thinking about doing an internship soon. Okay, now when can you participate in an internship? So if you are a PhD student, you have to be ideally past your confirmation of candidature. And for an MPhil student, you have to be about 12 months into your degree. Now, the thing with these timelines is that this is sort of the ideal timeline. However, given the global pandemic and COVID, we understand that some students have had or maybe having some research delays and difficulties. So if you are a PhD student or an MPhil student and you are before these timelines, we will still consider temporarily your internship application at the moment, as we understand that, you know, there might be a need here for you. Overall though, these are the timelines. To be past confirmation, you'll be at least 12 months into your degree. And the reason for that is we want you to be quite settled into your degree and have an idea of where your research is going, you to be able to take a break. So what happens when you do an internship is we pause your candidature for that duration. So if you're on a scholarship, that means that your scholarship pauses then. It also means that any milestones that you have coming up automatically get extended by the internship duration. The exception for that is final submission of thesis. So if you do one of these under examination, generally your final submission of thesis deadline will remain the same. And a couple of more things there is because we do that pause, your internships must be timed so that they don't minimize impact. They minimize impact in the thesis project. That means if you have something growing in the lab or something like that, that is not the time to do an internship. You want to do it maybe somewhere else in your candidature. And the thing is that students who are currently under review cannot do an internship. However, if you have passed a previous period being under review, and if you don't know what under review means, don't worry about it. If you've been under review for those students, you'll know what that means. So that's the timing. And the other thing too, though, is that this timing is new. These only came into effect from about the 1st of March this year. So if you're speaking to someone like your supervisor, they may still think that we're still talking about an under examination model. So prior to 1st of March, students can only do their under examination, but that has all changed. You just have to be past confirmation now. Okay, now there are several types and ways to arrange an internship, and this is what was coming through in the chat. So we have a QT HDR internship model. So we've developed that because we understand the need to have opportunities for our entire HDR cohort. In addition to the HDR internship model, we also have APR Intern. So APR Intern is a federally funded third-party provider of internships, and their funding conditions mean that they have to prioritise PhD and domestic students. Or alternatively, you can utilise an existing scheme or program. Now, there are so many of these out there, and some examples include the Internships in France initiative. Now, this year was paused temporarily, but the applications reopened up again recently and have only just closed. We are bound, we have the international internships question come in the chat. You can do internships internationally except for any COVID restrictions. So at the moment, no international internships. However, once those restrictions start to ease and you can travel again and QT insurance covers it, then we'll be able to start doing those again. Exceptions do apply. So if you are an international student and you're overseas at the moment, then we do have mechanisms in place for you to do an internship where you are, as long as there's no travel included to get there. Another internship that comes up is the STEM policy graduate internships. This is with the Australian Academy of Technology, Science and Engineering. And so these come up about once every 6 months for a student to work on a national STEM policy program. Another one that we have that comes up is the Parliamentary Library of Australia Summer Research Program. Now this one is based in Canberra, but there is both relocation funding and a stipend attached to it to help assist with those costs, where you go spend some time in the Parliamentary Library doing a short research project over the summer. Now, today and kind of moving forward, we are specifically talking really about those first two types of internships. Really more so the first one, the QT HDR internship model, but we can also utilise the APR intern model if we choose to. So we're mostly talking about those first two today, whereas those last external scheme or programs, they vary a lot depending on those individual programs. And so we just sort of look at those and make that work for you. Okay. Overall though, a HDR internship is a short-term, tightly focused and clearly defined research project that's with or for an industry partner. So that means that internships can be with QUT if it's working on a project that is both with or for an industry partner. So we had a question come through about teaching internships. Internships are all about engaging with industry and that very kind of broad definition of industry as a research end users. Now, specifically, they're typically about 3 months in duration. They are industry funded. So the funding that comes from this primarily comes from industry partners, apart from if it's part of a larger grant through QUT. And that funding means that you receive a scholarship for your participation in the program. Now, the project itself is developed collaboratively between the academic mentor, yourself, and the industry partner. And while there are project goals, there are also individual learning outcomes that are tailored specifically to you and your development needs. Importantly, projects are separate to your thesis research. So they shouldn't be anything that you do in an internship should not then be ending up in your thesis. And part of the reason for that is that any IP owned in an internship is typically owned by the industry partner. Now, these are sort of, just keep in mind too, that these are all the details if we're talking about a QT internship or an APR internship. Of course, if it's an external scheme, all these will vary. But at this stage, we generally have the question of what an internship actually looks like for students. So I have a couple of examples to show you. We were going to have a past student who'd done an internship join today, but unfortunately they were unable to at the last minute. Because it's I guess the thing with these details here is that these parameters are quite broad, and they're broad for a very specific reason, which is that an internship and what it can be can vary quite a bit. So the first one I want to show you, that's a quote from a student in the quote box there. We had an engineering MPhil student, who's actually a chemical engineering MPhil student, who undertook an internship with a market research, doing market research with a mining scale up. Now this company was undertaking a larger project with QUT. So this student came in and did the market research, sort of small research project that accompanied it as part of their internship. And it was really useful in this case because while the student had a lot of chemical engineering experience, there's also the market side of that, of sort of understanding the end user and who the end users are going to be of the products that they were developing, and that she was hoping to develop in the future as well. Another example we have here is from a student from Creative Industries, who's a fashion PhD student who undertook an archival research project with a community arts organisation. So they had their fashion PhD experience, and they were able to take it and look at, it was basically a history project of using archives for this community arts organisation that had a big anniversary coming up. And you can see that they've explained their benefits there. And these are just two examples. What an internship can actually be will vary greatly, as long as you're sticking to the parameters that are in these details. There's a lot of leeway there. It can be things like research-based practice. If you are if you're more in the creative practice side of things, it can be working on algorithms with a company. It's very broad, just like the nature of what all our HDR cohort is doing in their thesis and their research is quite broad. So is a HDR internship and what it can actually encompass. And it's important to keep that in mind when you're thinking about sourcing an internship. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, some more of the details. Throughout an internship, you are supported through a QUT academic mentor. Now, this person does not have to be your supervisor, but ideally they'll have expertise in the internship, in like the project content. The academic mentor, if it is different to your supervisor, is often the person who has sourced the internship. Their main responsibilities, if you want to have a chat with supervisors about this or they have questions, the academic mentor is there to assist you and to work with you and the company to develop and vet the project suitability. And with QT, we incentivize them for their involvement in that. So they get a little bit of research funds and they get to include the entire project income as external income on their RAD profile. Now, there's a lot of benefits for all parties with internships. I don't expect you to read these, and I'm not going to talk to all of them today. I guess the point that I'm trying to make with this slide is to show that these internships were designed to be multi-beneficial arrangements. So first and foremost, they're all about you as the students. We want you to get the most benefit out of these. The reason of why you do an internship is because a student, when you graduate, all HDR students will have done their thesis and their research. This is all about giving you direct experience of taking all the wonderful skill set you've developed during your HDR and applying it on a real world industry problem. Like I said previously, academics as well, regardless of your career path, being able to evidence this in a few different settings makes all the difference. One of the first students we ever had who did an internship had been applying for jobs for quite some time and had the dream of having a job in a university, but had kind of given that up and was applying for lots of industry jobs because they were getting close to graduation. Now they did an internship hoping that it would help them get a job in industry. And actually what it did is after months of applying for jobs and getting no interviews, by about halfway through the project, they updated their CV and put it on their LinkedIn profile, and they instantly got about 6 interviews for jobs and had 3 job offers as a result of that internship, including one that was a postdoc position in Canada that student subsequently took. But as a result of the internship as well, they also have a standing offer with an international consulting firm who, because they turned down a job with them, basically said, when you are looking for a job, come back to us. So there are a lot of benefits of doing this. And the thing with careers, and especially at the moment, is you don't know where it's going to lead and where you're going to go. Internships are really useful in helping you prepare by having that extra evidence of your skills wherever it's going to go. Now, how the funding works. So no students sometimes have a lot of questions about this. So if we're talking about a QUT model, so the industry partner would pay $10,000 for a 3-month internship. Now the split of that is that you as a student get your $3,000 per month stipend. That's paid just like a normal QUT HDR scholarship is paid, so it's tax-free. It gets sent to you once a fortnight. And then there's $1,000 that goes to research funds for the academic mentor for their involvement. Now people have some, APR intern. So APR intern, like I mentioned before, is a federally funded non-for-profit program. Their funding requirements mean that they are limited to PhD students, and a lot of their projects are limited also to domestic students, unfortunately. Now, we take APR internships and advertise them online via HiQ as well as in our e-update. We don't put all of them in though. I kind of curate a few. So if you're really interested in an APR internship, I recommend signing up to their mailing list and making sure you keep an eye out on their website. Now, they're currently only funded till the end of 2020, and internships, that's actually changed. So September on here, but they actually now must commence by December 2020 and be finished by mid next year. So if you are interested in an APR internship, we don't know what the program is going to do in the future. So if this is something that interests you, we recommend that you sign up now. Very good question, Nicole. I'm so sorry. I did not tell you what APR intern stands for. So APR just stands for Australian Postgraduate Research. So they're an initiative that comes out of AMSI, which is, I think, Australian Mathematical Sciences Institute. They have a very STEM science focus, but at the moment they have, they've got a market research project with TAFE Queensland, which looks really exciting for those who meet the eligibility criteria. And that one in particular is looking for students and a university have an ongoing relationship for. So they have a range of opportunities at the moment. If you're eligible, you can sign up. So there's one, project. Shahab, I'm going to come back to your question at the end. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it when I saw it earlier. Actually, I'll answer it now. So Shahab's asked, how can we find an academic mentor if our supervisors don't like to participate or don't have expertise in the advertised internship project? That's not a problem, especially if you are especially if you are applying for an APR internship. Now they have on their form something where your supervisor has to it looks like your supervisor has to sign it. For QUT, they actually don't. I'm the one who signs off on all internships. So that means that if you're thinking of applying for an APR internship, and this is where the academic mentor question is relevant here, you have to submit a student approval form from your university. And when you go to the ad, there'll be details there. Don't worry, send it to me, and then we can have that discussion. If you are offered an internship or you're interested in one, we have a program where just like students can register their interest in internships, staff can also register their interest in internships. That means that I have a bank of staff who have said that they're available and willing to help students through an internship experience, which is great. And it means that I can tap into them, or I can also work with you to find someone else. We can sort of tap people on the shoulder by looking at the skills that are required for the project, but also that you're wanting to get out of it as well. Okay. A couple other questions, but I guess we're doing it. Do we offer internship opportunities within Australia outside Queensland? Absolutely. So we offer internship opportunities everywhere. So APR Intern in particular is a federal program, so it's all across Australia. And actually a lot of the opportunities are not Queensland based. However, COVID changes everything as it does at the moment. So we can also support, in addition to sort of moving places for internships, as long as there's no travel restrictions, we can also support internships from home or internships remotely based at QUT. So I have a couple of students at the moment who are doing internships in interstate internships, and they can't travel there at the moment. So we've made sure that they have desk space and are set up at QUT so they can engage with their project without any interruptions. And can a full-time student have a part-time internship, example, 10 hours a week? And if so, can it be 6 months duration equivalent to 3 months full-time? Yes, it can be. And a note too on that timing, I guess is where my slides are sort of the basic version of what's going on here. So an internship does not have to be 3 months. It can actually be anywhere from 2 to 6 months, potentially even longer. What we look at is the project itself and like, does it need to be that long? Like, what are you doing? And sort of the learning outcomes there. But certainly it can be a part-time internship over a longer duration. The caveat there is that if that also works for the industry partner. Ideally, with these intensive research projects, you would be pausing your thesis research for the duration of the internship. You then go and do the internship, work on this sort of discrete project, and then at the end, you come back in and pick up your thesis research. And that means, so say for your 3-month internship, your final seminar and all those other milestones are extended by 3 months, as is your scholarship, because your university scholarship pauses for that duration and then you pick it up again. If you are looking at something that's only about 10 hours a week, I would question whether it's like an internship, or if you're talking more of like a placement experience. So placements are separate. We can also support those. If you're wanting to get kind of more work experience type thing, they're not funded, but you can go out and have those experiences as well. Okay, and Georgia has just reiterated someone's question. Can you do an internship at another uni's research lab? That is a very complicated question. I know it seems like a simple question. It would depend on what the project is, if there is an industry partner attached, and if it, sorry, I should not read the other questions coming through. So typically when we're talking internships, we're talking research end users, so not another university either, so not QUT and not somewhere else. However, if it's with or for an industry partner, then we can certainly consider it. Like, there's really no strong set rules here. There's a lot of nuance when we start talking about projects with other university labs, because it also would have to look up at the setup and all that sort of thing. If you have a particular situation or a particular area in mind, you have questions about it. So JD West, I strongly encourage you, if you have something in mind, send me an email and we can have a chat about it. As much as possible, I try and make these opportunities work for students because the reason the program is so broad is we want it to be really flexible for everyone. So send me an email if you have something in mind. It seems like we're on a roll with questions at the moment. So Gabrielle has asked to confirm the internship extends automatically PhD milestones internationals too. Is this correct? Yes. So there's absolutely no difference there. If you do an internship during candidature, we pause your enrollment and we put you in, we have sort of mechanisms behind the scenes. We put you in a unit to do something else, but yes, milestones extend, that doesn't change whether it's domestic or international. Because on that note, sorry, just Gabriella, is that internships are not work, internships are a learning experience. They're something for your personal development, and it's actually within the curriculum of your HDR degree. It's an optional aspect of the curriculum, but it is within the curriculum. So you are, when you're on an internship, you are engaging in a full-time study experience. Nicole, should I approach an industry partner and inquire whether there is an opportunity first? I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, about self-sourcing internships. And actually we have a whole HDR career roundtable coming up on that. So we'll get to that. Ranjita, applying for an internship. Okay, we're going to be covering that. Okay, excellent. And Gabriella, you're welcome. Okay, back to APR interns though. I will just finish this off. People have lots of questions about the funding. It doesn't, so I put the equivalent there for 3-month internship. This really only comes into play if you are looking at self-sourcing and self-sourcing an APR internship. I think the thing here to keep in mind is that you as a student get paid exactly the same scholarship regardless of the scheme. It all just depends on the eligibility criteria. Now, the internship process. So the first thing I'd encourage you to do is to submit a program EOI. That tells me that across our thousands of HDR students at QUT, who's interested in this scheme and approximately like when you're interested in doing it, and a little bit of information about you and your research and what area you want to get into. I'll talk more about it in a second. The next stage is to sort of source and secure an internship, and there's a couple of ways of doing that. Then there are some pre-internship tasks. You then go and do the internship itself, and then there's some completion stuff at the end. We're going to be looking at all these steps in a little bit. So first thing, expression of interest. So like I said, complete the EOI online. We've actually got a new system, and it creates kind of a profile for you that you can keep updating throughout candidature. So if you've already done your EOI, I recommend that you maybe as a result of this session, go back in and have a look at those responses and see if there's anything you want to update there. Now, this form can trigger an email to start the conversation with your supervisors if you want to. If you don't want to trigger an email to your supervisors and you want to have that conversation yourself, or you want to initiate a conversation yourself, then just leave your supervisor's details blank on the form. There'll be sort of an asterisk there saying, don't leave this blank if you don't want it to go to them. Now, the expression of interest, apart from telling me kind of, predicting who's interested in what, it's also really important because some internships are not advertised. So some opportunities that arise through QUT connections and industry partners need a shorter turnaround. We don't have time to advertise it, and ideally they're just looking for like a couple of students. When that happens, the first thing I do is I go to the internship EOI list. So if this is something that you're interested in, I really recommend that you register now. Georgia, are you able to please add the link to the chat, please? If not, the link will be sent in the email that goes out afterwards. Expression of interest are also really useful because sometimes I get phone calls from people who might not be at the stage where they want to commit to an internship yet, but they want to know if we have students looking who are, potentially interested in internships in particular areas. When that happens, again, I go to the EOI list. Another use for it is that if we're looking for students to invite, like invitation-only events, we used to have things like the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame. Again, that's the list I go to. It tells me who is interested in industry engagement opportunities at QUT. So I really recommend signing up to that if you're not already on it. Now, your options for securing an internship, and really there's two options. You can apply for an advertised opportunity, or you can self-source an internship. Now, in your planning, I recommend that you kind of prepare for both. Just because if you're thinking of self-sourcing, maybe be open to applying for some of the advertised opportunities as well. But also I wouldn't necessarily, because internships are competitive, be relying on getting an advertised internship. I'd also be trying to think about how I can source one myself. The benefits of self-sourcing, and we'll talk about in a minute, is that you can develop an opportunity that's perfect for you and your skill set, because there's no guarantee there's going to be an advertised opportunity available when you are ready for it. Okay, so applying for an advertised internship. So internships are advertised on HiQ. Actually, I do have the link for this one. Now, let me copy it. If you go to HiQ and search industry engagement opportunities or HDR internships, this page will come up. We can look at it a bit later too. And opportunities are collated from a range of sources. So when I get notifications about APR internships, if we have any internal ones at QUT, or some of those external schemes that I was talking about, then we advertise them on UniHub. Now with external schemes, any that I hear of certainly go up in UniHub, but I'm just one person. So if, especially for some of those students that are looking for international internships and exciting kind of international programs, I recommend doing your own research about some possibilities there too. The other thing on that too is if you see an interesting program that you think your fellow HDR students might be interested in, feel free to send it along and we can help the community and add it to this page as well. Now, when you're applying for an internship, particularly the QUT or the APR intern scheme, you apply online using a pre-supplied template. Now, I really strongly recommend that you treat this like a job application. Just like jobs are competitive, so are internships. For the QUT internships, you're applying for a position that's open to all HDR students at QUT. For APR internships, you're actually competing against HDR students nationally. So take that application process seriously. Now, we have upcoming training to help you do this. So Georgia, our HDR career educator, has an upcoming training on the 3rd of September called Nailing Your Internship Application, where it's going to be all about going into this in detail and how you can make the most of it. Some tips for today though would be to, very basic, make sure that you use the CV template provided on the application form. Now, for both QUT and APR internships, we give you a CV/application template to complete. Make sure you do that and that you pay attention to all the details on that form, including simple things like, are you using the right template? Have you completed all sections? Now, when you see internship ads, it's important to note that some are time sensitive while others are flexible. So a lot of the time with our project EOIs, we get an idea of what the company wants to work on and approximately when they want it to start. However, if you see it and it looks like it's something in your area, but the timing may not be quite right, that you might not be ready just yet, particularly if it's an APR internship, I still recommend applying or reaching out to the relevant contacts and having a chat about those opportunities. The other thing too is that if you see a project EOI and it looks in your area and you think that potentially what's on the EOI could be adapted, or that with your expertise you can maybe amend it in some way, it is just an EOI, so feel free to send any ideas that you can apply and kind of use that in your pitch to the company as well. Yeah. So with the timing, if you have questions about that, if it's not on the ad, send an inquiry through and we can look into it. Now, for the internships then, just like a job application, and we do set it up like a job application because we're trying to give you practice in that process as well, which is why applying for an internship, even if you don't secure one, is we still like to treat it as a really valuable learning opportunity to go through the job application and the interview process. But hopefully when you do your application, you get offered an interview for an internship. Now these interviews are pretty much based solely on the online applications, which is why it's a really good idea to pay attention to those. Just like a job, they interview the students. It may be a few students, it may be lots, it may just be one or two or just one. And just like when you're applying for a job, the actual specific format of that interview will vary depending on who it's with. So I know I get lots of questions from students saying, you know, how long are internship interviews generally? What's the format? Will it be a panel? Will it be meeting with, you know, and who will be on that panel? Just like there's no set answers for that with jobs, we don't have set answers for internships. It is very much variable depending on the company. But we do have, again, training support available for interview skills. So there is an interview skills webinar coming up on the 25th of November. That is a while away. So if you are offered an interview sooner, we do have a recording of the past session online on Blackboard, as well as other interview tips that have been curated by Georgia, available on Blackboard. And we can show you Blackboard at the end. So hopefully you're all familiar with the grad student Blackboard page. And Georgia has very kindly put the link in the chat. Thank you very much, Georgia. Now, the other option you have is to source your own internship. Now, this means you work with your supervisor or the HDR career educator, myself, others in your network, to source an internship that's suited to your goals. Now, in the past, students have created their own internships via their supervisors, and this can sometimes be their external supervisors on their panel, their mentors, if they're participating in something like IMNIS, people they've met at conferences, or people that their supervisors have met at a conference, things like 3MT. You know, there's a range of different options there. It's basically sort of identifying who's in your network and that this would be of interest to. Now, sourcing your own internship can be quite, it's quite a personalised topic, and it's all about what's best for you, although it is an example of why building your network during candidature is so important. But we do have a particular roundtable coming up on this very topic of sourcing your own internship. Now, at this, you'll be looking at the principles behind identifying an internship opportunity. So that's looking at your network and sort of thinking who here might be an option, and sort of the principles behind self-sourcing an internship. Now, because, like I said, sourcing your own internship relies on sort of a broader career development skill set. So things like being able to articulate your value, and then also having your network to be able to leverage to create your own opportunities. And now this is not just for jobs, but hopefully for a range of future opportunities for you. So we have, to support you in all those different steps, we have our HDR Career Development Program, which is run by the lovely Georgia. Georgia, you turned and thing on a wave below. I don't know if you want to say hello to everyone now. And
hi everyone. Yeah, look, I'll just say a few words and just let you know that we have a range of different workshops, webinars and roundtables that support you to be as prepared as possible to take on the fantastic opportunities that Katie's talking about. So do join us for the webinars or roundtables, and I look forward to meeting you online.
Thanks, Georgia. Okay, and Georgia's also here. If you have any questions in the chat, you can put them in. Now, in addition to sort of the shorter workshops and roundtables, we also have a 5-week online moderated module through eGrad School Australia, which Georgia runs, and that's out of grade 2, which is called Developing Your Career. So if you want to really a more intensive, sort of longer, sort of deep dive into your career and development, I recommend that module as well. And that is free for QUT students to participate in. Now, if we go back to sort of the internship process, you can see that when I was talking before about pre-internship tasks as well as the completion tasks, what happens is once you've secured an internship, there is an online module that we enroll you in to support your learning throughout that process. And I was saying before that there are individual learning outcomes tailored to you in an internship. We support all that through the internship module, and this is how we do it. So you don't really need to know a lot about that today. It's not something that you do if you kind of don't have an internship offer. This is really designed for those students who are about to start to kind of get an understanding of some like safety, like rights, responsibilities associated with placement. But it's all about also designing and your own internship goals around your personal development to really make sure that you make the most out of that experience. And then there is some reflective tasks at the end. Throughout internships too, there are also weekly check-ins with the academic mentor, which just can take the form of an email if that's what you want, if things are going well. But there, throughout the internship, at the midpoint, at the end too, you also do presentations to the industry partner, any stakeholders they want to invite, the academic mentor and myself, which gives you experience doing more industry focused presentations, but they're also at the end, there's a discussion, which is more like a group reflection about how you've gone during the internship. So we've kind of curated all this learning opportunities around it to make sure that this is tailored to HDR students and their needs when undertaking these experiences and how to make the most out of them. Let's skip past that one. So on the subject of making sure that these are sort of tailored as much as possible to you, GRED has developed the HDR Skills Assessment Tool. So there are a range of transferable skills that you are getting throughout your degree that are both needed for your future success, wherever that is, and which you should also be developing throughout. Now, GRED's done the hard work. We've collated these for you, and we've actually just turned them into an online tool. So you can use this online tool to track to self-assess where you are with those skills. You can also use it to make any comments or evidence for how you can support those skills, but also your planning about what opportunities you may want to undertake in the future. When talking about the skills assessment tool, it brings out a really good thing about the benefit and the need for internships. So while we say that you develop all these skills throughout your HDR journey, being able to evidence them in a wide range of settings is why industry engagement opportunities are so important for you as HDR students. I recommend that you engage not only with internships, but a range of different opportunities available to you. Now, to help you prepare for the roundtable that's coming up, we have a worksheet that I can send to you after this session, which we've designed all about how an internship can work best for you and your individual learning goals. Now, these are not necessarily just for students who are self-sourcing these internships, but also who are looking at a range of advertised opportunities and wondering what might be best for them. And what I really encourage you to do is have a think about where you're at with your development now, with all your different skills and experiences, using the skills assessment tool as a guide, and then have a think about where you want to be 1 year post-graduation. Now, where the internship fits in is how can an internship help you get there? I recommend when you're thinking of 1 year out, you look at job opportunities that you're thinking of, wherever they may be, 1 year out, and the skills that are required of them. Look at where you're at now and look at that gap. It's that gap that's the important thing. and thinking about how an internship or industry engagement opportunities or grad training more broadly can help you bridge that gap so that when you are graduating, you're as prepared as possible. You make the most of all this free training and resources available to you for your future success, wherever that may be. On the flip side of the sheet is we have just some prompts and reflections about having for you to have a think about, and this is particularly useful for those who are thinking of coming along to the self-sourcing workshop. So we're asking you to have a think about and reflect on yourself, the experiences you have so far, as well as the people, you know, who do you know, who have you met, that sort of thing. So if you can have a think about this prior to the self-sourcing internships roundtable, if you're thinking of coming along to that, it will really help you make the most out of that session and have a more in-depth discussion during that session. Now, current opportunities. I said I would show you where these are. So I've put the link on the screen. I'll just put the link in there. I'm just going to swap the screen that I share to show you. Okay, hopefully you can all see this. It's looking like you can on my end. So industry engagement opportunities, this is the page. We put a lot of the information and resources on there. If you're scrolling down, it's got information around eligibility and why. But importantly, this is the feed that you will see all the current available internship opportunities. You can see at the moment, I think it's mostly, if not all, APR internships, just given availability at the moment. Now, as I said, if you are interested in an APR internship, this is not all that they have, but it's a selection of them. On this page too, we've also got the different types of internships, some information on some of those external schemes. Certainly when they become available, as long as they've notified QUT, then they do also appear in this feed, but it's probably good to have a read through and see if they are of interest to you and maybe help you prepare with your timing for those. For things like the Internships in France initiative, there's actually lots of funding available for both relocation, living costs while you're over there, and then relocation, living costs, yeah, stipend when you're over there. And I think there's also some bonuses there, and I think those ones you do both with industry partner and an international university. You just have to be not a French citizen. And just some more general information on that page. So if we go back to current opportunities. So like I said, HDR career development, we've got a lot of things coming up. In particular, think about coming along to sourcing an internship and the internship applications one in late August and early September. What's coming up in the immediate future for all of grad though, we have an Articulating Your Value session on Thursday, 6th August. And this is really the first step in sourcing an internship for both methods, because you need to know how to articulate your value to external partners. Along those lines, something you may want to consider entering is the 3-minute thesis and visualized thesis competitions. If you're aware of them, or even if you're not, we have our grand final coming up on the 9th of September. Now, normally these are invitation only events, but this year, because it's taking an online format, it's available to anyone to come along. So when I said that articulating your value is kind of like that first step in career development, 3-minute thesis and visualize your thesis are the competitions that are all about articulating your research and its value. So I recommend coming along and hearing some aspirational examples from your fellow students at these grand finals. Even if you're not interested in internships, we like to encourage you to come along. It's great just to connect with your peers and the research that's being done across QUT. So we're back to questions in a second. Where to from here though? Submit your EOI if you haven't already done so. You can also start a conversation with your supervisor about options and timing, if you want to. I recommend you start participating in broader trainings, particularly the HDR career training for these opportunities. Keep your EOI profile up to date. So if it's already up to date, if you've just done it, it'll be up to date. But if you haven't looked at it in a while, maybe go back into UniHub to make sure you're logging in with your student account. If you're looking for an internship at a particular time, you can contact me, or if you have any example, if you want to talk through some of those nuances around location, or you have ideas further, feel free to send me an email. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing your internship applications as they come through. Now, we've already answered quite a few questions. Does anyone have another question? I see there's a comment from Nicole about, oops, sorry, I meant to scroll the chat. A comment from Nicole has come through about completing a visualization thesis helps you to articulate your research clearly. I'm looking forward to the finals. I'm looking forward to the finals too, Nicole. For those who want to know, Nicole is actually one of our finalists from education in the visualization thesis competition. Okay, Gabriella, regarding self-source internships, is there any guide how to formally reach out to potential employers? How can we present this opportunity to the possible employer? It says, currently I'm working part-time and I would like to reach out to my employer with possible research project. Yes, so we are currently, for self-source internships, we are currently developing a suite of like do-it-yourself resources, but I strongly recommend send me an email. What I can do is I can send you some of the collateral we have for external partners on internships, some description about what they are and how it all works. Basically, I will give you the wording for the pitch for you to then amend as you like. When you're self-sourcing an internship, I can also be there to help you throughout that process. I can help at the, just by giving you that information and then you lead that conversation. Or, if they have more questions, I can feed that back through you. Or I can also have a chat with them directly if they want to engage further. So part of my role in all of this is to work with industry to find and source opportunities for HDR students, including assisting students with self-sourcing their own after the initial approach is made. So I don't do cold contacting for students or anything. As much as possible, I want to empower you as the students to make those approaches and build the opportunities yourself. Okay, Orica has a question that about specific templates for the CV. Is it online? They can't find it. So the specific template for the CV is specific to the internship you're applying for, and it only applies for the QUT HDR internship scheme or the APR internship. So if you are on the page about available internships, you click on one of those and then scroll to the bottom, you'll find the CV template is actually on the internship ad itself. Okay, Johnson has got a question saying that they're currently doing the 5-week career module with Georgia. Excellent, good to hear. Will there be further information in it for internships? So the developing your career module, and I don't know, Georgia, if you want to step in here, but from my understanding, so that's run through eGrad School Australia. So you participate in that module with your peers across the country. So a lot of this information and internship information is very specific to the university. So QUT is one of the few universities that has an alternate scheme for funded internships apart from, outside of APR intern. So the 5-week module is more kind of general developing your career information. If you want more internship specific things, then come along to the internship sessions. Hey, you're welcome, Nicole. Okay. I can't see any more questions in the chat. Hopefully I've answered everything. If you think of something afterwards, you can feel free to send me and email, and I'll do my best to answer it there. Okay. So thank you, everyone. It doesn't seem like there's any more questions coming in.